So thank you. Yeah, I'm going to read for the most part just from my two new books, one that came out in January, one in February. But I always start every reading with the same poem in dedication to my mother, who, from what I understand, used to read to me every day in the womb, like for hours every day. So maybe that's why I started writing at a very young age. So I always like to read this poem. So this poem from a few books ago is called Death is a Work in Progress. My mother says, "Fox," while gesturing toward an old red wagon abandoned in our yard for decades. Fox, a word so cavernous, her entire body vanishes into it. Body of misfiring electrons, scattered images, no contexts. Body that is mainly just a body now. No other animal knows how to be this incomplete. I think if you were a fox, coyotes would have eaten you by now. But I say, yes, Mom, I'll climb into that fox and let you pull me through the high grass one more time. I always like to start with that, so thank you, Mom. For anyone who's dealt with someone who had a few years worth of dementia or something like that, and things get confused and things. So I don't know, I like to start with that. Also, every reading, I always want to read one poem I've never read before. Keeps it fresh. And I was considering which one to do today, and then quite literally 5 minutes before I logged in, I got an email from, if you're familiar with December magazine, and the very first pantoum, that form, the very first pantoum I ever wrote, just a few months back, just was the runner-up for their big annual contest. So I just got that news 5 minutes ago. So I was like, you know what? That's the poem I'm going to read then. So I have never read this one out loud. So here we go. Hopefully I don't miss anything. But so this, for the most part, my wife is Japanese. Her grandmother, who's still with us, pretty much was raised, for the most part, in a few different Japanese internment camps. The main one was in Minidoka, which is in kind of Idaho near Washington. And she had, as a little kid, she had taken some things. They weren't allowed to bring personal items. So, you know, the government came in, just took their house, their farmland, everything, and just gave it to probably some white people, I'm assuming. And so she just kind of had this one little doll that she kind of stole in. And it's kind of interesting that her who ended up being her future husband was also a Japanese man who came to the United States. And he was part of that, in World War II, part of the group that they were Japanese Americans that were bombing Japan on behalf of America. So it's kind of weird that she was there while he was doing that. So it's, you just kind of, some of that is in this poem. So yeah, so this is Pantoum for What Remains from Minidoka. A hand-woven doll, palmed tightly so the soldiers wouldn't notice. That delicate black tea set you buried under loose floorboards, still unbroken. The nearness of stars caressed through a rough aperture in the barracks roof, and all that rain seeping in to wet your dreams. That delicate black tea set you buried under loose floorboards like a body, and the body of your uncle, forever bent beneath plow and push. The aperture in the barracks roof, where all that rain seeped in to wet your dreams. Open the sky some nights to that old white farmhouse you'd never see again. Like a body bent beneath plow and push, your future husband out there emptying the belly of a bomber on his own country for love of this one. How he opened the sky some nights to fire. How they burned down the old farmhouse in your absence. How you cannot stop returning to it like a lost family name. Emptying the belly of a bomber on his own country for love of this one. Still unbroken, the nearness of stars once caressed through the rough aperture of light's absence. how you cannot stop returning to it, this Americanized family name. And this hand-woven doll at 94, you still palm tightly so none of us will notice. Yeah, so I'm gonna actually, I just printed out that poem. I'm gonna be mailing it to her since she's still with us. So yeah, so we still actually have that black tea set. My wife and I do, right up there, which is really nice, that she actually put under floorboards so that the guards wouldn't take them from her. So I'd like to read, if I may, some poems from The Drowning House that just came out in January. Cover. And so one of the things a couple of the poems, maybe half a dozen poems in this book, what I was doing is taking a historical figure, usually one that had something quite terrible that happened to, and then pairing that with an artist and trying to create the context for that historical figure through the imagery from the artist. So this is Emmett Till, Edward Hopper. In your mouth, 1,000 unpainted churches, steeples snapped off like baby teeth in an apple, rusted bells trying so hard to ring, ringing, crows along your restless edges, where clapboard meets sky in storm. The sky is always storming. Skin can be its own broken republic. Everywhere, overgrown rail tracks and a few white people who don't know what to say to each other. Not anymore. Truth is married to the surface of things. The surface is a lighthouse overlooking wreck after wreck. No ships here anymore. Nothing left to cradle and swing safely into harbor. All sorts of things swing. All sorts of women sit on the knife's edge of a bed, half naked, staring out a half naked window. All sorts of men are tossed over bridges after whistling a little tune. Come back, crows, bells, edges. In you, let the night see its face. So yeah, all of those were, all those images are actually directly from Edward Hopper paintings. And something that always struck me, as much as I love his work, are the paintings that have people in them. They're always these very despondent, confused looking white people that either can't look at each other or just staring out windows or, on beds rolled away from each other. And somehow that made sense to me with the context of Emmett Till's story. So the next poem, something else I discuss quite often in this book, and in most of my books, I think, that shows up quite a bit, is the idea of history and trying to bring history into the present, and kind of thinking about being Caucasian myself, thinking about what my ancestors may have been like. I don't know if they were. So this poem, and the idea of privilege and things like that. So this poem is called "The Dead Just Need to Be Seen, Not Forgiven." That old man in the photo our family never talks about. Known best for tracking runaway slaves. Tonight, we drag him from the basement up these loose wood stairs and set out a plate of salted cabbage and rabbit. So long since I've asked why the empty chair at our table. With all the warmth the body has to give, we give up on measuring the darkness between men. Dust and dusk enter and are wiped from the room. The names we call each other linger luminous and savage. Still, that tree I used to hang tires from holds tight to its dead centuries. The light swinging from its branches we call rope-like, which implies there's no longer rope. Tonight, we'll wash the burnt out stars from his hair in all the crumbs from his beard. The misfired bullet of his voice we let burn as it must. So I have no idea if that's a real family member or not, but it's always interesting considering what your family members may have gone through or may have done in your absence. So I think, there we go, there it is. So there's a line that I had read that I absolutely adored. When I read this fact, it became the title of a poem immediately, which was "Harps Strung with Gut Still Make Music After 2,000 Years." As soon as I read that line, I was like, that's obviously the title of the poem. So then I wove the whole poem around that idea. I love that. Just, can you imagine? Nothing lasts anymore. You know, things last months these days, if not years. So harp strung with gut still make music after 2,000 years. 12 unpaired shoes hang windless from a wire, threading streetlights together. Eventually swallows reclaim them. Without the need for twig and try, they raise a family in our cavities. My son points a toy gun to my temple. Each bang reminds me my father was once a mountain that crumbled beneath me. How the sheer terror of cradling so much weightlessness can flatten landscapes, raise cities. I'm going to read a few poems, if I may, from my book that just came out earlier this month, actually, Scale Model of a Country at Dawn, that Joan said such nice things about. Thank you so much. And some of the poems, these are still a lot of the same themes, but some of them are a bit more intimate, perhaps, than some of those others. More to do with parenting too. I have twin 5-year-olds. And so anyway, the first poem in the book is called Ordinary Beasts. There are worse ways to die. The tinfoil sword my son hacks off the heads of hydrangeas with, turned inward. The poisoned teacup my daughter serves to the stuffed bear, clutching a fat pink heart I gave her for her 3rd birthday. The sky peeling back layer after layer like an onion, a bedsheet in August, and the world warms. It's amazing what you can find beneath what you're looking for. Beneath the dough we left for dead, a mangle of maggots gleaming white and true. Beneath me, my son pinned to the earth, giggling as if the moment belongs to us. I once made a necklace of paper clips and wore it like a string of enemies' ears. Even if I knew how to take it off, I wouldn't. I still haven't. We all need something to scream into. Void, mirror. It'd be a shame to mourn ourselves alone. So this one, this next poem, sorry, I'm a little thrown off. So the next poem is for those who are probably familiar with having some people have these behind glass. I remember we had to do this in, I think it was middle school, studying anatomy with butterflies, right? And pinning back the butterfly's wings, and we had to, I think, dissect it in middle school. But some people collect them, of course, behind glass. So that's kind of the image in one's head here for this poem. A careful study post-mortem. No matter how many pins hold it down, the wings tremble. In your mind, still attempting flutter, flight. Like any child, terrified that every body is part yours. Even this strange mess, speckled black and gold, like midnight in the stars that define its edges. That there are edges at all hurts. Shouldn't the dead carry less weight, less expectation of awe? The pages begin to fill themselves. Measurements, comparisons, organs so small, you're not sure that all interiors aren't ash. Like what rests, useless and cooling, beneath the fire your father last night showed you how to light. Mostly, he said, so you won't keep asking when your mother will return. So this one can get a little more, tiny bit more personal. So I think, yeah, this one. So this poem is very much dedicated to my daughter, but it also begins with a brief quote from Langston Hughes. Today you will write about lights. And there's, Minidoka, Manzanar, and Harmony. Those three words, those are all internment camps. So that gets referenced here. I saw the sign, scuffed and hooked over a boarded up door frame, freed from meaning only open or closed, doctor or butcher, just a beautifully blank face gone all impartial and true. Each brick shattered window its own cathedral, its own eye. Finally, with history holstered, the barrel but lukewarm, the fossils of fallen stars have a chance to shine again, to be dusted off into dust our future ancestors. My daughter, for example, how little her skin resembles mine. How if this were 1944, she and her brother would be displaced in Minidoka or Manzanar. Harmony, harmony. How she loves to say that word without the weight of context. How like a lighthouse, she scans every goddamn corner of her safe little sea in search of some wreck to save, to guide back into harbor. Today, it's my heart. Love, thank you for that. And for this rotted old wooden sign, briefly, we will leave our names on. So thank you, Kaya, my little daughter. Especially with the rise of violence against Asian people in this country. It's been particularly worrisome. Obviously, I wrote this well before that, but particularly worrisome recently with my kiddos. So I'm just going to read, I guess, three, something like that. Just a couple more quick poems. So this one a little slightly more personal, but I had spent some time some years back before my wife and I were together with someone else in Iceland. It was Northern Iceland, and there was a time where it was sunny and bright at the day and night. It was just constant brightness, and the sun, the sun never sank, and that really can be pretty tiring. Even more so perhaps than 24 hours of darkness. So this poem is called Forever Daylight. Again, the sun fails to dissolve, and I cannot wash the light from your hair. The world stands excruciatingly visible, stuck in its own song. What the night must steal to give us something to rediscover about ourselves never leaves our hands. No gauzy horizon, no ambiguity, nothing left to unlearn. We draw the curtains, but even this is a candle. Even the bent heads of ice caps melting, the fjords rising, these sheep are not the dreaming kind. Rugged, furious, walking cliff sides as if water. That something can have no gods at all and still be holy. That we are finally seeing ourselves in the full light of another's eyes and cannot stop flinching. Our throats gone gravel and road salt from all this ceaseless awe. I am. Oh, you know what? I'm going to read. Yeah. I want to read one other one that I've never read before. Much more narrative than my usual one, and then just one more. So this one is called Square Dance at Dusk. Not golden, more the off yellow of old rust. It's easy to say it's the sky adopting the color of the hay on the floor and the bleached streaks in her hair, and that everything is at heart a mockingbird. This fiddle could be any fiddle. These bodies move like bodies. It's been this way for 400 years. This furor of limbs, the carefully chosen steps toward and away from thrall. Bourbon and boarded up mills. The world leaning on tired stars. At this time of night, well before the loving has begun, the windows are full of staring crows. The unlit face of the moon is as bright as the true. If there's a difference between unjoining and reuniting, I hope we never learn it. I think, yeah, I'm just gonna, okay. So this will just be it then. I'm just this final poem. And again, so thank you, and Erica and Joan, thank you so much. Kelly, it's great to see you again. And I got to read Fairly just a few weeks ago together, so I can't wait to hear it again. I really look forward to get the other, because I'm not familiar with your work, so I'm really excited to hear you. So this is gonna be, I'm excited. So this is my last poem called Object Permanence. I'm glad my kids are old enough to know that things remain. Everything's still here, even after hidden behind the world's back, stolen from view, presumably erased from existence. Like a loved one you have no photograph to grieve. Like that red wagon my father broke and scrapped and said I'd only imagined dragging through our garden, which once, and therefore still, throbbed the morning green. If leaving infancy behind has taught me anything, it's never assume the disappeared cannot return. If what I've lost over the years is a lesson, it's that nothing returns in its original form. See, my mother would say, how the pale blue ball of thrown up into the sky is now a moon, gorgeously unattainable. Please see me like that. Thank you so much.